Hey, good afternoon. It's Marshall here. I hope you're getting this live. I tell you what, it's Friday. I think it's Friday. You know, it's funny. I had to go out today, and I walked out into the yard and I saw my neighbors had put out the trash cans, and I realized, oh yeah, I guess it's trash day. So it's either Tuesday or it's Friday, but it's Friday, and we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit special today. And since the way I got this set up, you technically can't see my face. You can see my hand. So we're going to do a series of drawings today because number one, drawing is awesome and it's kind of a great way to relieve some stress. And I know we're all under a bunch of stress right now. So I figured, hey, let's do some drawings. And also too, it's just a fun activity for the kids and for the grown-ups as well. And I think since you can't see my face, I'll just go ahead and give you a quick drawing of my face so you at least know what I still look like. You know, it's funny, we're all going to come out of this thing looking like Sasquatches because we can't go to the barber shop or we can't get our hair done. So I figure this is what I look like now. Kind of. And this is what I'm going to end up looking like in about another 4 weeks. So anyway, I thought I'd go ahead and get started with a couple drawings real quick. And I know there's a lot of kids that are watching today. And so I just wanted to bring Banjo and Pip into this because a lot of kids have the book Banjo Dreams and they've seen Banjo around a lot. So I just want to kind of give a quick tutorial on how to draw a banjo real quick. So, all right. You know, Banjo was a real dog, and so is Pip. Pip is actually asleep on her couch right now. In fact, she's quite annoyed that we are here. She was kind of like, why are you home? And I'm sure you're probably, your dog or your cat's thinking about the same thing right now. It's like, why are you guys hanging around so much? I'm really getting into my nap. And I think Pip likes having us around to a point, but it is kind of cutting into her beauty sleep. So you might actually hear her barking at some point during the hour. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, Banjo is pretty easy to draw. Like I said, he was a real dog. Banjo was a used dog that we got. I would say he was a rescue dog, but we got a call one day from a lady we'd gotten our other dog from, and she lived in Atlanta, and she said, how would you like to have a second dog? And what I heard was, how would you like to double your vet bills? But we went over to Atlanta because, you know, not like we have enough dogs here in Mississippi. And this little brown dog walked across the floor into our hearts. And he was our dog for a long time. When he was 10, he got diabetes, and he fought really valiantly for another 4 years with diabetes. But Banjo was a border terrier, which is very similar to what you would see Benji. And so he had triangle ears. So always, for the kids, always start with a triangle one. And what this is right here, these little lines, this is called hatching. And you can either do hatching, which is straight lines, and that gives it some shade. It look dark. Or you can do cross hatching, and we'll do some of that in a little bit later. And here's his second. Here's his second ear. And Banjo, of course, had a little bit messed up hair on top. And he had a beard. So we give him a beard. So you got the beard. Now these pins that I'm using, they're actually calligraphy pins. And the reason I use them is because you can do different line widths. When I draw the cartoons that you see in Mississippi Today now, I actually, believe it or not, draw them on a computer. I use a tablet, which is an iPad Pro, and I have an Apple Pencil. And the reason I do that is because when I'm out on the road and I'm talking to people, I can draw in coffee shops, or at least I used to be able to draw in coffee shops, and anywhere where I can find Wi-Fi. Now though, but I mean, I still like to draw with pen and ink. And so Banjo has a nose, and what you can do for his nose is you can draw like a little curved line right there. And then you draw another line right there. And you make a line right there. So it's almost another little triangle right there for his nose. And what I'm going to do is give him a little bit of a reflection from the light. And I'm going to color in. Now, when I was talking about cross hatching, this is cross hatching right here. See how I'm crossing it like that? That's called cross hatching. So I'm going to give Banjo a little bit of a dark nose and a big nose. And Banjo didn't, you know, when I draw Banjo, I never draw him with a mouth. So you never see his expression. But you can do a lot with his eyes. And really his eyes are just a couple little round dots, almost like you're doing a snowman. 2 pieces of coal. So in Banjo, I draw Banjo generally standing up. Although I do draw him sometimes on all fours, like a real dog. But I give him a collar. He's got a collar. And then I give him a paw print on his shirt. And the paw print's kind of another triangle. You can see it okay, good. Good, I'm just checking. Hey Patty, I got your message there. I'm glad you can see it. I see some folks are unable to tune in. I'm glad that you can. So I'm just double checking everything's working good. Or working well, excuse me. Yeah, my grammar's taking a furlough. So there's Banjo right there with a, let's see. I see a lot of folks there. We go. And I give them, what's really fun in the book, you know, every page except for a couple have paw prints on it, so the kids would always try to find. So there's Banjo. As you can see, he's a sweet looking boy. Now, when Banjo passed away, now Banjo would be, oh gosh, how old? He'd be 22 years old if he were still alive. So he'd be a pretty old puppy. But the day that he passed away, Pip was born at the same exact moment that he died, and that's how we ended up getting her. And she's a female border terrier, but she looks just like Banjo. So what I do with her is I do the same thing with the triangle ears. And I always thought, you know, hey, when Banjo was born, or when Banjo died and Pip was born at that same moment, I thought maybe some of Banjo's soul went into Pip. But no, Pip is very much her own dog. So we got, and since she's a girl dog, and a lot of people get confused when they see pictures of her on Facebook or on Twitter, they think that she's a boy because she's got a beard. So I give her a bow when I draw her. And then once again, there's the nose like Banjo. So she looks very much like Banjo. So for kids, if you're just drawing, you can draw Banjo with a once again, I give her a beard too. She's got the eyeballs. But I give her a mouth. I have her frowning here. She sometimes is a little bit frowny. But actually, so when you see one with a mouth, she has one. And I give her a collar that says Pip. She was named Pip by the people that we got her from because she was the smallest dog in the litter. So she got the name Pipsqueak. Although I wouldn't say she's the smallest dog anymore. So there she is. So that's how you draw Pip, and that's how you draw Banjo. Now, what we're going to be working on today is we're going to do a drawing of Pip and Banjo flying over the state capitol. So I thought that'd be a lot of fun in their little biplane. Now, when I was a kid, I loved to draw airplanes. And as you can see, I've penciled it out. Now, for the kids, the reason I do pencil first, and for the adults too, the reason I do pencil first is because it's a lot easier to erase pencil than it is to be able to do, you know, white out over black lines. So I put the pencil down to kind of give an idea where I'm going to put something in a drawing. And people always ask me, well, how long does it take you to draw a cartoon? When I used to draw it by hand all the time, it would take longer. And I'm going to show you all some drawings here. Let me reach around and grab them. These are some pen and inks that I did over the last few weeks that took about 2 or 3 hours a piece. This is Ramsey, Cascades, and the Smokies. That one took about 5 hours, actually. And that's got a lot of hatching and cross-hatching. And this is a creek. Up in the Smoky Mountains. And I just like drawing sometimes just to keep in practice. And this is looking off of Klingman's Dome, which is the highest spot in the Smokies. Smoky Mountains are closed right now, which kind of surprised me. This is a picture of a church that I did. That was a local church. And as you can see, that's Chapel of the Cross up in Madison. As you can see, there's lots of hatching and cross hatching in there. One of the things too, and this is kind of an art lesson part of this, when I first started drawing, my first drawings when I was a kid, Mom kind of discovered early on that I could draw, and Mom was an art teacher. And she discovered very quickly that if she gave me crayons and paper, it'd keep me quiet. And also, too, that was one way she kept me quiet in church. People always say, how'd you learn how to draw? I said, well, Mom kept me quiet in church. But I always used to just draw lines, and I loved to draw airplanes, and I loved to draw cars. And then I took a painting class. I really have not had much art training, and sometimes it shows. But I did take a painting class when I was a high school janitor right after college, and I learned how to paint. And I loved to paint, but I learned about value. And you can use value, which is light or dark, to be able to be lines. Like, for instance, right here, there aren't lines here. This is just the darkness makes that pop out. And so you can use value to be able to make your artwork to be able to jump out. And here's another example of that also. This bridge, which goes across a stream in the Smokies, by doing this dark through here, making this light, it makes the bridge pop out. So that's called using value when you're doing black and white, and you can do that with color also. I'm not going to whip out the crayons today, I don't think. And here's one that I did of another waterfall up in the Smokies too. So, but anyway, that's just because of practice. So what we're going to go ahead and get started on, we're going to get started on Banjo. We're going to do state capital too. And people always ask me, well, what are your favorite things to draw? And I've probably done, I was trying to think the other day, I've done about 6,500 cartoons, maybe close to 7,000 cartoons since I've lived in Mississippi. And I came to Mississippi in 1996 and have been the cartoonist really in the state ever since then, and really have loved every minute of it. I mean, I'm not a Mississippian by birth, but I am one by choice. And so, but people always ask me, what are your favorite things to draw in Mississippi? And probably number one is the state capitol. I love the state capitol, an incredible building, absolutely gorgeous. If you've not had a chance to go visit it, well, go. Well, not right now, we can't, but when we get a chance to go. And since you can't go right now, you can go to MississippiToday.org, and we have coloring sheets to help your inner artist and also to help relax. We have now got 5 coloring sheets on there that go from Jackson, which is the state capital that you can color, then also Biloxi, and then the Delta, which we will visit other towns in the Delta, but this is just a general scene of the Delta. We did Vicksburg. Vicksburg is a great town. It's got a lot of interesting history to it too. And then today's is Oxford, and I threw caricatures of different writers in there as well. So what we're doing with those coloring sheets is we're taking people all around Mississippi, so it's a lot of fun. So like I said, we're doing this with pencil first, so I can kind of have an idea. Very roughly, you can kind of see the airplane. You can kind of see where Banjo and Pip are going to be flying over the Capitol, and you'll see the Capitol. So we'll just go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with kind of a thicker line pen first to kind of lay out where I'm going to put the heavier lines. You know, and I was talking about value before. You can also do a lot with the thickness of your line too to tell the story. When you're an artist, what you try to do is you try to move the reader's eye around the artwork. And I know that sounds a little weird and a little manipulative, but you think about it, like when people look at one of my cartoons, they generally don't look at the cartoon for more than 30 seconds. So as an artist, what I try to do is to get their eyeballs to move all around. And since this airplane is going to be in front of the Capitol, I'm going to use thicker lines for the airplane than I will for the Capitol. So there's a little bit of thought put into that. You know, a lot of this stuff with practice, it just kind of is done in your subconscious and you don't really think about it. But there is a little bit of method to the madness to it. So we're going to go ahead and put the engine. There's David Mars, who lives here in town, has got, and I think it's Stedman biplane, and David, please correct me if I get that wrong, but he allows biplane rides up at the Madison airport occasionally. And when my son was younger, I had a little bit of money in my pocket, and so I said, okay, yeah, we'll go up. And my son was like 8 or 9. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. So we strapped ourselves in the plane and we went up and we flew over the reservoir, and there was no cockpit there. I mean, there's a cockpit, but there's no dome or glass or over anything. We just had the seatbelt. And we're like flying all over the reservoir, way up, doing, you know, not loops, but almost flying upside down. And it was pretty incredible experience. But it looked kind of like this plane right here. Like I said, when I was a kid, I loved drawing airplanes. I grew up in a place called Marietta, Georgia, and it's still called Marietta, Georgia, as a matter of fact. Marietta is right north of Atlanta. I lived there, you know, for most of my life. I went to college at the University of Tennessee, but then I came back and worked as a janitor at a local high school right after college. And Marietta, though, has a big airplane plant there where they make giant cargo planes. And they make what's called the C-130 and the C-5. And so when I was little, I used to sit there and watch those giant airplanes, those big cargo planes fly all around. And I used to love seeing them. In fact, sometimes you'll see the C-130s fly into Jackson, or you'll see them come into Meridian or down into Gulfport. So they're 4-engine prop planes. In fact, down at Keesler Air Force Base, they use C-130s for the hurricane hunters, which is really neat. C-130Js, and they use that to help track hurricanes. So that was kind of how I got interested in drawing airplanes. You know, people always say, well, how did you become a political cartoonist? I grew up in a family. My parents were Republican, and we used to sit and talk about what was going on every day in world events. And of course, you know, growing up in Georgia, I had Jimmy Carter and Watergate was going on and Vietnam. And so my parents would make my sisters and I, we would sit down every day and we would talk about what was going on in the world. And that was always a lot of fun, you know, to sit there and argue about, you know, current events when you were a kid. Well, my parents subscribed to 2 papers. They subscribed to the Marietta Daily Journal and to the Atlanta Journal. And so we get the morning and the afternoon paper. And so what I would do is I would read the paper, and I love the comics. I mean, my favorite comics when I was growing up were, love Peanuts. Peanuts was great. And when I was a kid, I thought I was Charlie Brown, you know, and I had a beagle, so I thought, you know, that was Snoopy, but her name wasn't Snoopy. But I mean, I loved, and I could draw all those characters, and I felt like they were my friends. And then Garfield came out, and I thought Garfield was pretty funny initially. I'm not a huge fan later on, but I loved that. But then Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side came out, which absolutely blew my mind. And so, but on the editorial page, they had these cartoons where you would see, you know, Jimmy Carter with giant teeth, and you would see Richard Nixon with his 5 o'clock shadow, and it'd be talking about, you know, Watergate and all the different things. And it kind of melded the 2 things that I loved. And I loved history too, because I grew up near Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield, or Military Park is what it's called now. But so I grew up there, so I always loved history. So it was like a combination of all the different things I loved to do. So when I was a kid, yeah, here we're going to drop in the bottom part of the plane. In the back wing there a little bit. Take a break here and look at the screen. Sorry, I'm trying to do this and look at the screen sideways here. Let's see, great. Oh, good. Hey, Ann, how are you? Thanks for dropping the comment in there. I appreciate that. How are y'all doing, by the way? I just wanted to check in on you while I'm drawing. I'm kind of a little bit worried. I think we're all real stressed out right now, so I hope this is helping a little bit. I do not have a pet squirrel or a giant Bob Ross afro, although like I said, after a few more weeks of no haircuts, I may end up with a Bob Ross kind of haircut. All right, here we go. So we're going to put the tail of the plane on. I've got a couple friends that have got World War II aircraft, and I think they've both let me ride in their airplanes, which is really fun. One was Dan Fordyce, and he's got a P-51 Mustang, which is absolutely one of the most incredible aircraft I've ever built. It was just so much fun. And then John Mosley, who has a TBM Avenger, which was the Navy's bomber during World War II. And so I've drawn both of those planes for them. And that was really a lot of fun. I can really draw really serious airplanes when I want to. This one's not serious because it's fun. See, I got to tell you a little story here for the artists in training here. When I was in college, we would go to the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists would have conventions. And so, there were maybe 200 editorial cartoonists at that time. There's probably 12 now. And we would go meet, and we'd go different towns, like we'd go to Memphis or Washington, or we'd go to Seattle, and it was really a lot of fun. And so I remember going to one, let's see here. We'd go to one and we'd see different people come speak, but it was a chance for me to get to actually meet the different politicians, different cartoonists, and get advice from them. People always say, well, did you go to cartoon college? No, I wish I had. I probably gotten better grades. But no, I learned to do this by doing it. And that's what I always tell kids. And, the best, and parents too, if you want to give the best advice, people are like, well, what kind of lessons can I do for my kids? Or what can I do? What my parents did for me, I said earlier, my mom was an art teacher, but I don't know about you. I never listened to my mom. And I was very stubborn and bullheaded. And so I don't think I would have sat down for a lesson from her for a million years. But what she always did was she always had paper, and she always had pens, and she always had encouragement. And I'm very, very grateful for that, because it allowed me to pursue something that I love. And when you come up to your parents and you say, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I want to go be an editorial cartoonist. Well, there were, at the time, 200 jobs maybe. And, like my dad's looking at me like, you could be an NBA basketball player. There's more jobs. But he just said, well, you're going to be the best one ever. And that's what parents really, truly need to do for their kids. Is if you see your kid has a talent, and don't do it because you want it. Now, I will say this. Don't do it because you think they should be a cartoonist. If you see them loving to draw, encourage that. If you see them loving music, encourage that. If they love sports and are willing to put in the time, encourage that. And that was kind of the trick with my folks. And I'm very blessed that they were my parents in that respect, because I don't think I'd be sitting here right now drawing you an airplane in front of the Capitol. We're doing it on time. Better speed up just a hair. All right, so we got the little plane. Now, when I took the painting class, my art instructor said, you need to put in information. And I'm like, what kind of crazy thing is information? Information just would be details. And so what I'm going to do is, now these are called Microns. They're another kind of paper, another kind of pen that I use as well. And these right here are what I usually put my details in. And so, you're close to the plane enough that you're going to see some detail of the fabric that it's made. So you're going to put some lines in there and maybe a few rivets if it's steel. So we'll just put in some dots. Now there's another kind of drawing out there called pointillism, where people, instead of using hatching like I talked about, they use dots to create points and make shading with lots of little dots and little points. I do not have the patience for that. I was the kid who would make models and would not allow the glue to dry. So I have no patience whatsoever. So what I'm doing right now is doing the cross hatching to give the plane a little bit of detail. And so Banjo and Pip are all settled in there. I'm not going to put guns on this one. I just figured I'll make it just a little civilian biplane. Now, if they were going after flying squirrels, probably, because both Banjo and Pip do not like squirrels. Banjo is a little better hunter than Pip is. Pip is probably, that's not one of her strong suits. I know she's in the other room and she can hear me, but I'm afraid the squirrels kind of get the best of her. Banjo, when he was 14 and a half, and he was just really not super healthy at that point, there was a squirrel that taunted him. And one day I came home and the squirrel was at the doorstep where Banjo had caught him. And it was kind of like his last way of saying, quit taunting me, please. And so that was one of Banjo's last hurrah. All right, some more shading. People always say, well, you know, I can't draw a straight line. I can't draw a straight line either, I'll be honest with you. So I hope, by the way, you have found the coloring sheets, because those really are, and if you're a teacher and you're seeing this, I would recommend, you're welcome to use those. We would love you to use them too, because it not only does it teach the kids a little bit about what's going on in Mississippi, but it also gives them a really good activity to do too. All right, we'll put a tail wheel on here. Okay, anything else I think I should add here? Let's see. You know, it's fun. I've got, I did some drawings recently where they were in color. And so, hang on, if you'll just hold on for 2 seconds, I'll show you how I did the color on them. Usually when I do color on the cartoons, I do it electronically with the computer. This was done with watercolor. You can see the watercolor on that. So when I do color, and I have watercolors that you use, like traditional watercolors, and when you do that, you have to make sure your pens are not water-based. All right, so we got Banjo and Pip laying in there, so let's go ahead and start on the Capitol. You know, State Capitol, absolutely, if you've not ever visited it, like I said earlier, is so gorgeous. You know, it's a product of, here the state sued the railroad companies. They got this huge payoff. So instead of, you know, in the old Capitol, which is still there, and they really did a great job redoing it after Katrina, you know, nearly ripped the roof off, Katrina did. But they built the new Capitol, which is the Capitol, but it was built on the site of the state penitentiary. And they moved the state penitentiary to Parchman, which, as you can tell by Mississippi Today's stories and many of the other stories, there were some issues there. But that's the site of the state capitol now. And it's absolutely, the detail is incredible on the building. And when I'm doing it in non-cartoon form, and I have done some drawings, and I'll post some of the drawings that I'm talking about on this page, on this event, on Mississippi Today's Facebook page, so you can see what I'm talking about later. I'm kind of doing a one-man band on the filming. So let's see, you know, social isolation and all. Social distancing, not isolation. You know, that's the thing, because people say, well, it's social isolation. No, it's not, because now with technology, we can really stay in touch with everybody really well. And I hope you're staying in touch with people. I hope you're touching base. My friend Andy Stoddard had a really good advice. He said, reach out to 3 different people every day and say hello to them, because I don't know about you, but being in the house, and I mean, we're in the family. We've got, my wife teaches, so she's doing a good job with videos to her students. And my sons, all 3 of them are in school, so they have various levels of doing electronic computer work also. But all their classes have gone online. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's nice to be able to talk to people. And we can do that through FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or here through Facebook Live. So, see, I'm real. I'm here. And so we can see each other face to face and be able to talk. We try to get out in the neighborhood and we go for walks, and we're lucky that we can do that. I think one of the things that's so important to do right now, and I think we're all so wound tight, because some of us, you know, there's a job thing going on because of the economy. People are losing their jobs. They're cutting their pay cut. I mean, it's a tough time. And then people are getting sick. And as you can tell by my voice, I've been fighting something for a better part of 3 weeks now and not been able to shake it. So it's just good to get outside and put some oxygen into your lungs and actually breathe. So here we go. We're going to put that. Actually, I made that a little short, but that's okay. I'm not looking at a picture of the Capitol. I'm doing it from memory. And as you can imagine, my memory is not as good as it used to be. Okay. Once again, you can see I'm using a thinner pen since it's in the background. I want the plane to be able to stick out a little bit more so it's not real. All right, so there's that. I'll put some windows. Yeah, my second favorite thing to draw is the Ruins of Windsor. And I found the Windsor Ruins really early when we moved here. I think we were going down the trace one day and saw the sign and, you know, went past Alcorn and got in and, you know, back then it wasn't as cleared off as it is now. So it was kind of like, we were like, okay, are we going to survive this? You know, because it was way back in the middle of nowhere kind of. And we got there and just, it was so mesmerizing, the columns. And I've done 2 paintings and several drawings of the ruins. And I love doing that too. So we're going to put the... The legislature thought they were going to get back in business in April. Doesn't look like they're going to right now. And if you're doing your taxes, by the way, federal taxes have been put off for a while. I can't remember the date off this. I know, but state taxes, it's May 15th. They put it off for a month. I think, was it June for federal? Don't quote me on that. But on state, I know for sure it's on May. It may even be July. But anyway, May for the state. And the reason that is because the state budget's due and they have to actually know how bad it or, you know, how much money they have. So that's kind of where that's going with that. That's why that's not put off any later. So make sure you get your taxes done so we can pay for all the good things that we pay for. Or you can get you a lottery ticket. I think they're giving away toilet paper now for the lottery. They're not giving away money, which I hope your toilet paper situation's holding up real well. That's important. Yeah, I know. We went the other day to the grocery store, and you know, really have to be really careful now with the coronavirus is spreading like it is. So you want to make sure that you don't, you know, expose yourself unnecessarily or whatever. But you know, you need to go buy groceries. So we went and bought groceries, and there was bread, and we're like, wow, there's bread. I mean, this whole thing is so insane. That stuff, like, you know, I never would have thought a million years that I would get excited if I saw a roll of toilet paper somewhere. And I definitely wouldn't think I'd be excited because I saw bread. But, you know, I mean, they're doing, and I got to say, big hat tip and a big attaboy to anybody who, number one, is stocking the shelves. And number two, anybody who is doing a good job out there in the trucks. You know, one of the troubles, and I follow a couple friends that drive across the country delivering, and they're working for trucking companies. One of the problems they're having now, believe it or not, is finding open restaurants. So it's like, well, you know, I don't know how much more, how many more Vienna sausages I can eat. So I just wanted to say, I'm really, really wanted to say thank you. If you know anybody that drives a truck, or if you're sitting there watching this and you drive a truck, thank you. All right. So how's it going so far? Are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying the drawing? You got any suggestions for me? Okay. This is the first time we've tried this, and I think if it works well, I think we're going to probably do this more often. And we can even open it up where you can give suggestions on what I should draw and do that too. And I'm going to teach you, for those of you with kids, before we go, and we still got a good 25 minutes, but one of the things that I'm going to teach you to do for parents and for teachers is a little activity that you can do with a simple piece of copy paper with your kids to teach them on how to be an illustrator. In fact, I'll just go ahead and do that now. Reach across here. All right. So parents, take a piece of paper, fold it in half. and then fold it in half again. So you're going to have it this size. Then you're going to open it up. And you're going to have 4 boxes, just like that. Now you're probably thinking, what's that going to do? So take a 4-letter word and a clean 4-letter word, because we don't want to, no sense of teaching kids any quicker. And they have to learn these words. So let's use the word draw. So D, R, A, W. So you can tell your kids, okay, D, what's a word that starts with D? What's an R that starts with a word that starts with R? What's one that starts with A? What's one that starts with W? So you could do dog, and you could go ahead and do a banjo. Or you could do your dog. Or you can do, words that start with. So you could do, let's see. You get the gist of it, though. One of the things I recommend, too, for kids, or older kids, is keep a little journal. A white book. You can buy a little notebook that's got blank paper in it. And just draw, just average everyday things. Because the more you draw it, the easier it gets. I don't think kids will draw a razor, but that was my brain not working. You do an ant. Ants are insects. They got their 3 sections there, and 6 legs. Done. And W, let's see. What's a good W word? Anybody? Quick. Come on. You got to give me a W word here. So that's a good activity to do, an art activity to do with your kids. You can take a piece of paper, you fold it into 4, you fold it twice, open it up, you have 4 boxes, you take, we learned that in 3rd grade. I had a teacher named Mrs. Kaler, and we would do that every single day. She would come up with a new vocabulary word. Obviously 3rd grade, you're not talking, 9-letter words, but we would do that. And like if somebody was sick, like somebody's mom was sick or something, we would write, get well, and then we'd write that, and we'd all send her the things. But, the funny thing was about that was that taught me how to become an illustrator, because I've illustrated books, and it's really not much difference, to be honest with you, because all you're doing is looking at words and you're trying to illustrate them. So, all right, back to the drawing. Got 20 more minutes here. It's like Top Chef. I've only got X amount of time. I got to get this thing done. I've done this before on TV shows, to where I have like 30 minutes to do a cartoon, which is a lot quicker than I normally draw a cartoon. But I always manage to pull it off. People always ask me, where do you get your ideas from? Well, I tell them I have a crack team of comedy writers at the state capitol that give me some great ideas. But to be honest with you, I think that's just, it's all you got to do is learn how to just observe. And, y'all are funny. I'll read your comments. I know what you're saying. So, yeah, Amy, I appreciate your comments on setting up. This is, like I said, this is an experiment. This is the first time we've done this. And so one of the problems I've got is that I am having a little bit of trouble with my tripod. So this was the only way I could set it up. But I appreciate the idea. We'll get this figured out. It's like all the people on national TV that you see doing for their home office on that. But thank you for the suggestion. That was a very good one. I appreciate it. Appreciate that. Well, let's see. Stephanie, I see your comment, but I only see part of it. So as soon as I see the whole thing, I will answer your question, I promise. One of the things I love on the top of the Capitals is it's got the big gold eagle, which I generally make it the eagle looking like he's been surprised. But I would figure at this point, the eagle really shouldn't be surprised by about anything. So. Okay, will you show how to draw on the iPad Procreate one day? Yes, we will do that. I will, I tell you what, I will start doing animated videos of the cartoons that I do on there that show the process. You can do that. You can actually record every step. And what I do on Procreate, which is the computer program that I use on my iPad's in the other room. I would show it right now, but I will do that the next time. And it's a little hard to see on the screen from the camera, but what I use is, of course, I have the Apple Pencil. I use Procreate. I come in, I create a layer right above the base on it, and I use blue, which is traditionally they use blue so because it wouldn't show up on camera. I just do it because it's a color that I don't normally draw in. And I do my sketch with that, and then I'll create like 4 or 5 more layers on top of it. And I'll go up and use maybe 5 layers up, and I'll create the black plate, which is this. This is the black plate using the lines. And then with Procreate, you can come back under it and actually put color under it and use the different tools. And I did a series of drawings over Christmas. I had a little time off, and I did, I guess, 50 drawings of Santa Claus and a biplane because I like biplanes. And I used very little black on a lot of the drawings. But that said, you can use between the layers and being able to do that. And when you see the video, you'll see how I do that. So Stephanie, great question, and I'll take care of you on that. So, hey Eddie, I see your question. It'll pop up in just a second. It's partly blocked on my screen, and I'll answer you in just a second. But I am seeing that real quick. This is Eddie. Thank you. I drew. Oh, I just lost it. Sorry about that, buddy. So I see there's some questions about on the turning it sideways. And this was the way that I was instructed to turn it. Let's see. I'm a little nervous to mess with it too much at this point because honestly, I'd rather draw. You can turn your phone sideways or your tablet sideways and be able to see it. We just wanted to make sure it had a horizontal box instead of just a vertical box on that. But if it's a problem, I'm sorry. Hey, Rebecca, I'm glad that you and your daughter are enjoying it. I appreciate that. Okay. So there's the... So I'll put some swirls up in the sky for clouds. Here, this is... You can do the swirls a little bit to kind of give the look of some clouds. Or one of the things, like for instance, if you're doing shading and you have a round, it's actually round shapes, you can do curved lines, and it helps give the illusion that it's actually three-dimensional. And you can do that through shading too. Like for instance, if the sun is coming down this way, this down here will be darker than this up here because it's going to have, the sun's going to be hitting it a little bit, and there'll be a shadow there. Same with the propeller, which I have not drawn the propeller yet. See, even I like to scribble, so that's kind of fun. So you can have the propeller as he's flying and little clouds, little puffs coming out from under the airplane. Maybe a... Now, I was telling a story a while back about how I'd go to these cartoonist conventions, and I remember seeing different cartoonists, and what was really fun was I got to see their actual real work. I got to see, like what you're seeing here, the actual artwork, not what you see printed. And what made me feel better was that you'd see lots of whiteout on it, or you'd see mistakes, and it made you realize that, you know, everybody's kind of human when it comes to drawing, and it's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to draw perfect. A lot of kids worry that they're going to make a mistake on that, and there is no mistake. It's all, and people say, well, you know, my drawing isn't good, and that's fine, because a lot of my drawings aren't good either. And I think you have to, the more you practice, the more you get those bad quote unquote drawings out of your system, and you get better. It's kind of like when you first start playing guitar or doing anything else, it ends up being, that's just part of the deal, to where it gets into your subconscious and it becomes easier. But when I sat down with a cartoonist named Lee Judge, and Lee was in Kansas City. I guess Lee's still there. I don't know how much he's drawing these days. But Lee looked at my portfolio of my work, and he said, I love what you're doing here. I see, you know, what you're doing. He said, but you need to draw things to where they look funny, because it's a cartoon. And I said, well, that makes a lot of sense, I guess. And so he suggested that, like I said, that, you know, I draw my work looking funny. So when I started drawing wheels on my cars, I started drawing them really small. And people always ask, it's funny, when I go speak in front of groups, it's always like one of the first questions I get. Why do you draw the car's wheels so small? Well, the reason I do that is because it looks funny. And so airplanes have normal size wheels, cars, tiny wheels. And that's always kind of been my rule on that. But when you're doing a cartoon, and that's one of the challenges for me as an artist, when I'm sitting there doing those drawings that I showed you earlier, when I'm doing realistic drawings, sometimes it's hard for me not to go suddenly making it look like a cartoon, because that's what I do so much of. But at the end of the day, one of the things that painting taught me, learning how to paint, was it taught me how to see spatial relationships between eyes, and so the closer you get on spatial relationships, the more realistic something looks. Another tip that I got was, there was a magazine called Mad Magazine that a lot of us grew up with, and Mad just recently went out of business, which is really sad. But Mad had some of the best satire in the 60s and the 70s particularly, and later on in the 80s and so forth too. But they would do movie parodies and stuff like that. It was really, really well-drawn work. There were two other artists that were there at the Cartoonist convention that year, and one of them was a guy named Mort Drucker, who Mort is probably one of the best caricaturists that's ever lived. He's really good. And then there was Jack Davis, who's equally as good on caricatures, but what Jack could do really well was Jack could do motion really well. Whenever you'd see cartoons, you'd see things moving really fast. And So that was fun. And so I did a little caricature of Jack because I was 18 years old and thought I was, better than I was, obviously, and my ego was at that point hadn't been beat down enough, which it has been since then. And I showed it to Jack, and he did 3 or 4 lines on my drawing that made it great. I mean, turned it from an okay drawing to a great drawing. And that was when I realized how good he was. But he gave me some advice. He said, when you're doing a caricature of somebody, he said, you got to get the eyes right. He said, everything else you can mess around with, but you got to get the eyes right. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, when we're talking to each other, we look at each other in the eye. And he said, if you looked at my elbow or if you looked at some other part of me while you were talking to me, I would think something was wrong with me. So we got to get the eyes right. And so a few years later, I think it was a cartoon that I did in 2008. It was when the economy was melting down. Yeah, we've done this before. We know what this is like. And I did all the living presidents together, which was really a lot of fun for me because I got to do caricatures of George Bush, and there was Obama there, and there was Carter, and there was Clinton, and there was W. And I did W, and I was like, I never could really draw him super well. But then I realized even though he doesn't look exactly like his dad, he does have his dad's eyes kind of. And so I put his dad's eyes on him, and it made it perfect. And the thing is, you never know when you're drawing where you're going to get your education from. And if you want to go get an art education, hey, knock yourself out. And some days I wish I had done it because I probably would be a lot better artist than I am today. But over the years, the practice and being able to run into great artists, and I can sit there and watch Wyatt Waters, for instance, paint watercolors, and it just absolutely blows my mind because he can sit there in 30 minutes and do what I couldn't probably do in 6 years, and it's just so incredible to watch him do it. But it's once again, it's that practice, it's that muscle memory, and for the kids that want to become great artists, obviously you need to be able to do the practice and do the work. And another thing too, and I will say this. All right, so we got the clouds. Let's just go ahead and put some hatching there. Okay, a little bit more hatching to give us some gray there. The closer the lines together, obviously, the darker it becomes. So that's the secret of hatching. And we'll put that right there for Pip. We'll just write Pip right there. And then Banjo. And then Wolf. And they've flown around the building. One bit of advice I'll give to all of you, and particularly the budding artists on there, is that sometimes people are not going to like what you do. And I will tell you that right now, that it's okay. It's all right if people don't like what you do, because you've had the courage to sit down and put down your heart onto a piece of paper in your drawing, and you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. And if you try to make everybody happy with a drawing, guess what? It's going to drive you nuts. You can't do it. So what you try to do is, obviously if you're in the business of making money, you've got to do commercially acceptable art, but never allow that to slow down your passion. When I got started out, I was told over and over and over and over that I wasn't good enough, that I would never be an editorial cartoonist. I actually had an advisor in college tell me that they already had a cartoonist at the paper. And for some reason, I had a voice inside my head that said, keep going, keep working. And I think that is something that has kept me going through thick and thin, and it's something to let's see, Colleen says, do you put watercolor over this? I could probably not put watercolor over this one because I have used a water-soluble pen and would smear the black ink on the darker spots. This, however, is for an example of being able to put watercolor on top of to create the color. Jack Davis from Mad Magazine did that. That was the style he worked at. a lot of times what I do, Colleen, is I actually do it on the computer now, do the color. And I've really done the computer coloring since 2001. When I did Banjo's Dream, for instance, that was all computerized and done by color that way. So, but I do like, you know, I did a series of drawings recently where I had to do that, and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to do more of it. So that should... We're going to do this pretty frequently. We're going to do drawings, and what we'll do is we'll set up an events page on Mississippi Today. And what I want you to do throughout the week is come up with ideas of things that you want me to draw, and then I will draw them, and we'll do that. And one really fun activity, too, that I'm going to leave for your kids, and we did this one earlier if you missed it. Take a piece of paper, fold it in half, fold it half again, create 4 boxes, take a 4-letter word, break it into D-R-A-W for draw, and then the kids create their own words that start with those letters and illustrate it. That's a great way to teach them to be an illustrator. Another way of doing it is to get a piece of paper with your kid, have you draw a line, and then make them see if they can draw a picture out of that. Like, for instance, this could be an alligator with the backpack on. Or better yet, it could be a jetpack. And we put a dome on his head and make him in space. So, you know, little exercises like that can teach your kids on how to be able to actually think outside the box on that, and to create the creativity. People always say, well, you know, how can you do this sort of thing? Well, to be honest with you, I'm probably the thing I probably am as good at as anything is I can make 1 and 1 equal 3, which makes me a terrible accountant, but it tends to help on that. Hey, make sure you check out the coloring books. We're down to about the last minute and a half. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Any technical issues and everything, obviously, we will tweak this and get a little bit better, but I appreciate all the comments. I'm sorry, it's a little hard to lean over and look at the camera at the same time and be able to see the comments, but man, y'all have been great today, and really download the coloring sheets. The grown-ups can enjoy them just as much as the kids, but, you know, take your kids on a virtual tour around the state of Mississippi. I'm throwing in a few facts about the places that I'm drawing, and, you know, one of the blessings as being editor-at-large for Mississippi Today is that I've been able to do a lot of traveling and been able to see the state, and I've really traveled the state for the last 24 years that I've been here. And the one thing about Mississippi is you can't understand it if you just drive from your office to your job. And get out when we can get out again. I want to be able to do that. But in the meantime, enjoy the coloring sheets. And I think that that's something that you're going to enjoy a lot. And I'm going to go back and look over the comments and everything. And I just wanted to say thank you for reading Mississippi Today. Thank you for being on this Facebook Live today. And I hope you enjoyed the banjo drawing. And we'll just go ahead and... quick thing on my signature, which is kind of weird. I started doing it like that in 7th grade. Don't ask me why. Who knows? But it's been pretty much the same ever since. And that's not how I sign my checks. So if you try to sign one of my checks like that, it's not going to work out real well. But that's kind of how it is. Oh, and this is how I erase right here. Looks gross, doesn't it? It's called a kneaded eraser. This is the mother of all stress relievers. It's all plastic, and it takes all the pencil off without leaving any shavings. That's great. It's like $1.50. Highly recommend it. You can squeeze it when you're mad and everything else. Hey, thank you. It's time to go. Y'all have a great weekend and stay safe. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. Don't touch your face. Social distance so we can give our hospitals a chance. And call 3 people a day and check on them. Love y'all. Hang in there, and I appreciate it. And I'm out.